we'll start with bladder 60, called Kunlun or Kunlun Mountain. And this is a point located on the foot. And let me get my foot to show you. So it's by the outer ankle. Let's see. So you find the crest of the ankle and then come down off that crest towards the Achilles tendon at the back of the leg. And it's really about halfway between those 2 points, the top of the ankle and the Achilles tendon, and you fall into like a little gully in between those 2 landmarks. So that is a really common point, and it is the fire point on the bladder channel, and so it has some heat clearing effects. It has a strong chi descending effect like kidney 1 that we talked about last week. And so this could include for symptoms like high blood pressure, redness of the face, eyes, headache, particularly the crown of the head, and these are also symptoms of something called liver yang rising. So this that there's not enough yin energy to root the yang, and so it kind of has this uprising, causing heat and potentially pain in the head, maybe like some anger, hot-headedness. And so this is a point similar to kidney 1 to descend the chi and to ground down. It's also commonly used for pain. Can be used for pain anywhere in the back, even in the neck, like stiff neck, shoulders, and it can also be good for kind of strengthening the low back, in particular the lumbar spine. So this is a good distal point to, if you can't, get at the back, then to press on bladder 60. And like I've talked about with acupressure, you want to feel for a tender spot. So if it's not tender where you think the location is supposed to be, feeling around for somewhere that does feel like a good ache, and like an activating kind of sensation. So feeling for that tender spot, you can press with the pad of your thumb, with your knuckle. You can even use your nail if you want to have more precision, or it's like kind of a tight spot. So bladder 60, you should be able to kind of press your thumb or your knuckle in there pretty easily. Let's see, other things is it's also a good point to promote labor. So if you have a delayed labor, this is a one of several points that you can stimulate. Again, it has that downward, strong downward effect. And so for that reason, with acupuncture, you tend to avoid that point when someone's pregnant. And so I'd recommend avoiding strongly stimulating it if you are pregnant and you're not trying to give birth. You're not at that stage yet. This point can activate the entire bladder channel. So it runs, if you're not familiar, from the inner corner of the eyes up over the head, down the back of the head, and then in 2 lines down the sides of the back and down the middle of the backs of the legs, all the way past bladder 60 and along that outer edge of the foot to the nail of the pinky toe, to the corner. So the longest channel in the body. So pretty impressive. This point can activate the entire bladder channel, so alleviate pain potentially anywhere on the channel, not just the back. Yeah, a heat clearing, grounding point, pacifies wind, and also potentially for sciatica could use it, especially if the sciatica pain follows that bladder channel. So yeah, lots of good uses for bladder 60. And then on the other side, just like directly opposite, is the next point we'll go over. So the same thing, but on the inner ankle, you'll come to the inner ankle, the top, and then slide off into that space again between the Achilles tendon and the top of the ankle, and just feel for that little hollow that is tender with pressure. And that's kidney 3, sometimes translated as supreme stream, and just kind of hinting at the power of this point. It is known as the source point on the kidney channel. So every major channel has a source point, and that point tends to be have a very tonifying effect. So kidney 3 is no different. It is both tonifying for yin and yang energy. So strengthening, nourishing, and so the kidneys are the source of our yin and our yang energy. So this is really going right to the source with this point. And again, this one is also useful for backache, low backache in particular, can strengthen the lumbar spine. I think of this one more for people who might be older, or more wear and tear, degeneration, that need some nourishment, not just like kind of a chi stagnation, but also need that tonification, strengthening the kidney chi and yin and yang, or either. So really can't go wrong with this point if it's something to do with a kidney deficiency, in Chinese medicine terms. So yeah, so that could look like a weakness of the low back in particular. It could also look like different symptoms in the head. So this is again a good distal point. So the kidneys are related to the ears. So deafness, tinnitus or tinnitus, that ringing in the ears. This can be a good point for that. And as often those issues are due to some kind of deficiency of the kidneys. Also for headache, dizziness, high blood pressure. So high blood pressure could be rooted in a yin or a yang deficiency. So again, this point covers both. Also for toothache, sore throat. Those aren't uses I necessarily think of for this point, but the kidney channel does connect with the throat, so that's another potential use for it, as well as for asthma, like not being able to like really feel like you can take in a full breath. So regardless of whether you have asthma, coughing, wheezing, feeling like you can't take in a full breath, the kidneys play a role in our breath. The lungs receive, but then the kidneys are what kind of route that chi down, pull it down. So if there isn't that enough kidney energy to anchor the breath, can result in that shallow breathing. So this is a point you can use for that, as well as just like local pain or swelling, so just around the ankle itself. And this point also plays a role in the heart and kidney connection. So the heart and the kidneys have a special connection that when they're not communicating, it can cause a variety of different symptoms, such as insomnia. So this is a point that's good for insomnia, and also more so things we would think of with the kidneys, different urinary issues. But yeah, I most commonly use it for backache in people who are older or have had chronic back issues, kind of depleted kidney chi. And it can also be just a nice nourishing point, calming, grounding, and easily accessible. And so yeah, I love needling both of them at once as distal points for if I'm treating someone for back pain, for example. And if you're doing acupressure, you can just kind of easily squeeze both the points at once, wrapping your hand around like that. You can pulse, you can hold and squeeze where you feel that tender spot. So these points, nice like mirroring points for the brother and sister channels of the kidneys and bladder. And then the last point we'll go over today is bladder 10. So this is the back of the head, close to gallbladder 20, if you are familiar with that point. If not, there is a video where I describe where that point is and how to find it in, I think it's called Spring Acupressure Points or something like that. And so this point though, bladder 10, which is translated sometimes as celestial pillar, is if you feel for like that nub at the bottom of your skull, right in the center, that like occipital protuberance. So feel right underneath that, and then you go down like about a ½ inch, or to be more specific, an anatomical Chinese inch, which would be like the one of that would be this distance here between the knuckle and the top of the thumb or the finger, and so half that, so a really kind of short distance. So feel for the bottom of that protuberance, and then just drop down a little bit more. You probably feel like a dip right underneath, and that is a point on the Dumai, the governor vessel, right in the between the cervical vertebrae of the neck. And you're just going to pull to the side of that. And all these points, by the way, are bilateral, so the same location on the right and the left. So you're just going to pull over to the side from the middle of the spine to that muscle, the trapezius, that comes down from the neck to the shoulders. So it's just on the lateral edge, the lateral edge of the trapezius, and within the still within the hairline. So pushing through if you got hair there. And this is also that same distance that it is down from the occipital protuberance, it is to the side. So you're going down a half an anatomical Chinese inch or a half soon, and then over a half soon. And again, just feel for the tender spot. Might be harder because it's a harder point to reach on yourself. So if you kind of can show someone, and then they can give it more pressure if you want. So close by to gallbladder 20, again, if you're familiar with that point's gallbladder 20 is further out to the side and a little bit up from bladder 10, celestial pillar. So this point is known as a window of the sky point. And so in the tradition I learned, there's a kind of spiritual depth to these points, and the window of the sky points in particular can be useful for kind of opening up someone's perspective, allowing you to see a new perspective, see things in a new light. And on a physical level, I use this point a lot for neck pain, and it also is known as a point to pacify wind. So that could look like different issues in the head, similar to what we were talking about before with bladder 60. So it could be like, again, heaviness that's a new one, but headache, dizziness, heaviness in the head, stiff neck, and just kind of a tremors can also be a manifestation of internal wind. This also benefits the sensory orifices of the head, and it's another point that's very calming, can be very calming. So those are a variety of different uses. Window of the sky points also nowadays tend to be used for mental disorders, for things like schizophrenia, and this is another point to activate the bladder channel and alleviate pain. So it can be used like most points on a physical, mental, emotional, spiritual level, depending on the intention. And on that note, I think that wraps up our acupressure points for today.